One moment, James Comey talked about this Loretta Lynch matter, and he said he considered calling for a special counsel to probe the matter of Hillary Clinton's email on her server. And then he said he decided not to because he believed Clinton had not broken the law. So that's a rather declarative statement that we heard from him today as James Comey comes out now in front of the cameras. And Judge, hang with me one moment, because the one critical question that I don't believe was asked in a frank manner was whether or not there's evidence of a crime dealing with the president now. Before you answer that, Judge, let's just drop in here and see if we can pick up a microphone.
President Lott, anything to add to that?
Okay, it's over.
And that's that. Judge, can you answer it? What did today do in terms of proving there was a crime or not?
I don't know that today proved that there was a crime, but today certainly advanced the ball on the seriousness of this investigation and the breadth of its scope. If you look, as Chris Starwalt suggested a few minutes ago, at the big picture, not at a few snippets here, not at a few snippets there, you get a very, very credible and compelling argument that the President of the United States has not been truthful with the American people and ordered the director of the FBI to shut down an investigation. Did he order it because he wanted to conserve Justice Department resources, or did he order it because he wanted to protect a friend? The former would be a legitimate order. The latter is arguably a corrupt order or a corrupt basis, a corrupt intent. And this will all be examined by Bob Mueller. It is very, very clear, Bill and my colleagues, that the Mueller investigation is going to go on for a long time and is going to encompass all of this. And the type of interrogation that we just saw of Jim Comey, guess what? Bob Mueller is going to conduct an interrogation like that under oath of Donald Trump. Not whether, but when is the only question.
Should they have asked that question directly? Would he have answered that question?
I don't know that
whether or not there's evidence of a crime.
I don't know that he would have answered that. He might have answered that if he had still been the director of the FBI, but he cautiously kept away from the legal significance of evidence and stayed in the ballpark of, here's the evidence I can bring to you. You folks decide its legal significance. Shannon.
And yeah, Judge, I got a quick question for you, because now we find out today that the former FBI director admits he's the one who essentially funneled the information that got out there about these memos that he was keeping through a friend, a Columbia law school professor, and possibly that's in the hands of the press and some other people outside the DOJ. There's been so much made about leaks. The president had a disagreement with the FBI director, feeling like he wasn't handling leaks secretly or seriously enough. Of course, this would happen then as he was a private citizen, but a lot of people are arguing that those documents are federal government documents and property. They were put together on government laptops. They were done on government time. What do you say about those documents and the leaking of them?
Well, I think you could make both arguments. I think you could make the argument that the former director of the FBI improperly and unlawfully and for a venal purpose, that is to protect his own reputation, leaked a government document. You could also say he viewed it as his own note to himself, which he still possessed, even though he had given a copy to his former employer. And he wanted to advance the ball of truth. I don't know where that's going to go, but you can make both arguments there. I was surprised when he acknowledged that. I don't know if we're supposed to reveal the name of the professor at Columbia. I'm getting
it's out there.
Conflicting evidence. We're going to use his name. I'm not going to use his name. I don't know if he acknowledges
That's
it.
smart. We'll hold off on that for now. There's some reports that he has acknowledged it, but we'll just keep our powder dry for now, Judge. Do we have soundbite number 14 ready to go? This deals with why he shared the contents of the memo and with whom, and this is how that exchange went.
Did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
My judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square, and so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with the reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
And was that Mr. Wittes?
No, no.
Who was that?
A good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law School.
So you have that. Catherine Herridge is inside the hearing room. We need to speak with her at the moment to gather what she has learned already. Catherine, where would you like to begin?
Let's pick up
testimony right there from James Comey. I can't remember a time ever where a former FBI director has deliberately leaked the contents of a government document so it would get to a reporter in the hopes that it would prompt a special counsel investigation. And one of the problems, I'll say, for James Comey right now is that in his last public testimony here on Capitol Hill before the Senate Judiciary Committee, right out of the gate in that hearing, he took a series of questions from the Republican chairman, Chuck Grassley. And Chuck Grassley asked him whether he had ever been an anonymous source for reporters about the Hillary Clinton email investigation or the Russia case. And James Comey testified no. Then he asked him whether he had ever authorized someone else to be an anonymous source on his behalf on the Clinton email case and the Russia case. And James Comey said no. So at the very least, what you can draw here from that testimony is that once he left the office of FBI director, he was not necessarily a person of principle. He made a decision to leak information on an anonymous basis in the hope of really changing the entire focus of the Russia investigation going forward. So that, based on my reporting here over the last couple of months, specifically on that issue, this sets up, at the very least, a conflict or the need for a further explanation how he sort of squared these elements here, Bill.
Catherine, thank you. Catherine Harrington's at the hearing room. Still with us now. Brett Baer, Chris Wallace, Chris Steigerwald, Dana Freedom, the judge, and Napolitano as we continue our coverage here. Screen left, you see the room. That is where Mark Kasowitz, the private attorney for the president, will make a statement. We were given guidance for 1:30 Eastern time. We'll see whether or not that stands. The president was making a public appearance in Washington, D.C. in the past hour, meeting with a group of religious leaders there, conservative religious leaders in our nation's capital. Judge, to you on what the president's attorney says after this, how do you characterize it? How do you frame it in the minutes to come?
Well, full disclosure, I know Mark Kasowitz. He's a friend. He's also a superb litigator, and he's also represented the president for many years in many litigations, probably never one quite like this. He's articulate, he's fierce, he's very well respected. I don't know, Bill, if he's going to go through each and every allegation that Jim Comey made under oath and try and refute them. Quite frankly, and I say this with deference and respect, his statement this morning that the president was totally vindicated by Jim Comey's written statement, which we all got yesterday, was really not believable. And I think you're going to see him a lot more combative in a couple of minutes. If I were him, I would get in the business of addressing the more serious allegations that Jim Comey made, because they are very, very...
Starting with what?
Whether or not the president tells the truth to the American public about his communications with the director of the FBI, whether or not the president said, and whether or not the president asked for loyalty. He told our colleague, Judge Janine Pirro, that he never made such a request. Whether the president intended his, I hope you can go easy on Mike Flynn, he's a good guy, to be an order to shut down the investigation, because he was fearful that Mike Flynn, as Chris Wallace so astutely pointed out a few minutes ago, might turn some evidence over to Bob Mueller that would be against the president himself. If that's the case, that would be a corrupt motivation. So Mark Kasowitz needs, I think, very quickly to address all these issues before the general impression of credibility and condemnation that I suggest Jim Comey has created this morning sets in with the press and the American public unanswered by the president.
Chris Wallace, I want to bring you in to talk about that meeting that the judge was just talking about, which was at the center of so much of today's conversation in this hearing, about what exactly the president was or wasn't asking, what he was saying. So when that came up with Senator Dianne Feinstein, I want to play a little bit of her back and forth with him. This gets to the issue of possible tapes as well.
Why didn't you stop and say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you?
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have. I was so stunned by the conversation that I just took it in. And the only thing I could think to say, because I was playing in my mind, because I could remember every word he said, I was playing in my mind, what should my response be? And that's why I very carefully chose the words. And look, I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
He says he hopes there are tapes, Chris. I mean, it could, clear up a lot of things if there are.
Absolutely. Incidentally, I think that's a perfect example of why James Comey was such an effective witness today, because two aspects of that. There were times when he said, I could have been stronger. I could have stood up and done something, and maybe I didn't. He wasn't always painting himself as the hero. Sometimes he was saying, I may have taken the easy way out. The other thing is there were a bunch of times when the Democrats basically were setting him up and wanted him to take a shot at Donald Trump, and he refrained from doing that, saying, I'm not sure I'd go even to that conclusion. I thought it was very restrained, quite self-deprecating, and all it did was increase his credibility, because he wasn't painting himself like he was the guy in the white hat and Donald Trump was the guy in the black hat. But boy, it does certainly raise a question. We're never going to know what happened in that meeting unless the president does have the tape, because it will be a he said. We've got Comey's contemporaneous notes, but those are only as good as what he decided that he was going to write down. We don't know whether the president has a tape or doesn't have a tape, but we do have one piece of evidence, and I thought that Comey clearly was putting out there, basically saying, hey, ask these other guys. He's sitting in a room in the Oval Office, the president and Comey, along with, we're told, the Attorney General, the Vice President, the Chief of Staff, Jared Kushner, and the president asked them all to leave, that he wants to be just with Comey. The Attorney General tries to hang around, and he says, no, I want you to leave. Kushner, the president's son-in-law, is hanging around, no, I want you to leave. And it does raise the question, the direct question, that James Comey asked before the hearing today, before the committee today. Why did he ask everybody to leave the room and just want to be alone with James Comey if it was simply an innocent conversation?
That was on Valentine's Day in the Oval Office. Chris, thank you for that. John Roberts, North Lawn of the White House. And John, give us a sense for what was happening there during the 2-hour and 45-minute hearing.
Well, the president was involved in a lot of meetings, Bill. None of his aides can say for sure if we saw any of the testimony, but he was meeting with people like Rex Tillerson, H.R. McMaster, and James Mattis about North Korea and other pressing issues before going off to the Faith and Freedom Coalition meeting today to give an address. But I think for the president, and what we'll see when Mark Kasowitz steps up to the microphones in a few minutes, and by the way, you're talking about Valentine's Day. Last night was Mark Kasowitz's 25th anniversary, and he was down here and she was in New York. So, and there were reports also that he was so confident. There were also reports that he was so confident that he was handing out cigars at the Trump International Hotel last night. I'm told he gave one cigar to a friend. He wasn't that cocky about what was about to happen today in testimony. But in terms of what the White House is taking away from this, they feel vindicated that James Comey did say on numerous occasions in his prepared remarks and as well in testimony that the president was not the subject of investigation. They still take issue with a couple of the things he said. They insist that the president never demanded any kind of oath of loyalty or fealty from the FBI director. They also quibble with this idea that he was asking Comey to drop the Flynn investigation altogether. But I think what you'll hear Kasowitz say, in addition to taking issue to a couple of the things that remain out there, that they feel like this was a good day for them, that the president came away as well as one could expect. They also may point to this idea that Loretta Lynch was trying to push Comey toward a direction in terms of the language at the very least when they were talking about the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And I think that you'll see the White House making an issue of that. The only thing that the White House would say on the record about all of this,